going on, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. It took me about 20 minutes to figure out that it was Monday because we connect on StreamYard, but we give the people at Stochastic our schedule, right? So they create StreamYard events for us for the week. And it was like 1:50. I usually sit down at my desk at 1:40. Cliffy and I connect at like 1:45 and we talk about the slate. I'm sitting there at like 1:52. I'm like, where is Cliffy? He's usually not late. And then I start reading the event, and it says NHL DFS Strategy Show Tuesday. So I was just in the wrong room. But what's going on, Cliffy?
Yeah, I mean, it is Monday. I think everybody will give you a pass for that one. Those I do that all the time, so it happens. Not a lot going on here. Kind of wild. We have an 8-game Monday night slate. Like, this usually doesn't happen, especially this early in the season when there's still Monday Night Football. Obviously, the World Series is tonight as well, Game 3. So there's a lot going on. Usually we don't have these 8-game Monday slates. So nice to have, certainly. Lots of line movement, couple returning players, lots to talk about here with these 16 teams.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be here every day this week. There's nice medium-sized slates all week. If we're going to have shows like that every day, give me medium-sized slates. Don't give me, 12 to 14 games every day, like 6 to 9 games. Love it. It's so hard to break down 13-game slates and try to fit it in an hour. It's impossible. We always go over anyway, but we try to aim for an hour. But these are feasible. 8 games. I like it. This is an interesting slate. There's some, as Cliffy alluded to, there's some line changes. There's some people in back. Barkov's back tonight. You know what I mean? So some pretty big firepower in the slate. The Oilers and the Avs did play last night. They have the 2 highest totals again tonight. We'll talk about it. Let's get into the slate. Before we do, just want to say thank you, everybody, for your affiliate support, super chats, likes on the video. Just being here in general helps us out a lot. Thank you guys so much. And again, if you want to support us further and go premium, you can click that link in the chat. Use promo code Stochastic15. That will get you 15% off your first week or month of NHL. I think there's one more day for promo code TIPOFF24 for NBA. You can get Core Weekly or Core Monthly for $1. If you're looking to get all sorts of access, all the sims, all the sports, you can use promo code EVERYTHING. That will get you 10% off everything. Also, there's one with the avatar. If you use the Stochastic avatar on DraftKings and FanDuel, and you can just prove it, you get a discount anyway. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. You guys rule. Now let's get into the slate. Florida Panthers with a 3.2 total heading into Buffalo. The Skinny Swords have a 2.8 total. Florida has 3.2. I don't know if I said that correctly, but there we go. Alexander Barkov is back tonight. He slides obviously to the top line with Sam Reinhart and Evan Rodriguez. That leaves the second line the same as Matty Tkachuk, Sam Bennett Verhaeghe, Anton Lundell, and E2D2 Luosterainen are going to be on the third line with Jesper Boqvist. That's a big problem for the Sabres, getting Barkov in the lineup. That not only helps them offensively and on the power play, but it helps them a bunch defensively. It allows Lundell and Luosterainen to go back into their third line role where they thrive. So Buffalo going Thompson, Tuck, Peterka, Cousins, Zucker, Quinn. Quinn scored his first goal of the season on the empty net the other night. Good for him. Maybe that'll get him going. I'm a Jack Quinn slappy, so we love to see it.
Just to jump in, we have to keep an eye on warmups because it looks like Nicholas Aube-Kubel might return tonight. And if he is back, he might slide on the second line in Zucker's place, and then Zucker would go back to his normal spot on the third line. But we'll see what warmups have to say.
Nicholas Aube-Kubel in the top 6, man, on this team. Like, come on. Anyway, Florida's interesting now because we haven't had a top stacks run to get all these line changes yet, but as it was constituted, Kachuk, Bennett, Verhaeghe at 20,900, it was only 3.1%. I would imagine with Barkov coming back, it's going to stay around that. And you see the top line kind of get bumped a little bit. And, I don't know what Buffalo is going to do, but I would imagine they're going to send out their top defensive line against Barkov. And anyway, Bennett, Kachuk, Verhaeghe has been a wagon for multiple seasons now. 20,900 is about the price they've been at the peak for the past few seasons. You get Verhaeghe and Kachuk on the top power play unit. Kachuk finally scored that. He usually scores goals in bunches. I'm very much in on Kachuk, Bennett, Verhaeghe. If you want to go to Barkov, Reinhart, Erod, like that line has been a wagon when they've been together as well. I just want to see Barkov back in a home matchup. I just go to the line that I know is going to smash. Barkov line's probably going to smash too, but Bennett, Kachuk, Verhaeghe are just animals. I prefer them. I think that Florida one is fine. Interestingly enough, if Lundell and Luosterainen would be fine as a two-man if you're spending up. The problem is they've been in the top 6 for a few weeks now, so they're priced a little bit too expensive. So I'd probably look for cheaper two-mans elsewhere if I'm looking to power play stack some of the big boys. So on the Florida side, I'm fine with the Barkov line, but I prefer Kachuk, Bennett, Verhaeghe. I don't have a ton of interest in Buffalo. They have a 2.8 home total, which is the lowest on the slate besides the Blue Jackets. If you want to play Thompson, Tuck, Peterka in MME, you get a little bit. I think that's fine, but they're 3,500. At that point, I'd rather just go play Kachuk, Bennett, Verhaeghe. So I'm okay with some Buffalo and MME, but I prefer that Bennett line by a mile.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on the Sabres. That Tuck, Peterka, Thompson line has generally been really good. Like they were good last season when they assembled late in the year. This season again, 13.2 high danger shots per 60, only 5.9 against. Obviously, Thompson has been basically since they got back from Europe, he's been on fire. Peterka's doing pretty good as well. So, I do like that top line. This is a pretty tough matchup with Barkov coming back. And I think we mentioned it on Saturday's show. One of the big issues is Florida's penalty kill has been really, really good. Now, their penalty kill was really good last year, but they are also one of the most penalized teams in the NHL. This season, they're at 2.8 times shorthanded per game. That's below the league average. League average is like 3.1, 3.2. So they're well below that, as a matter of fact. They're not taking any penalties. Not that Buffalo's power play has been any good. In fact, they scored their first power play goal of the season on Saturday afternoon. But if without that power play upside, maybe they go 1 for 3 or something like that, maybe. I don't think they really have a realistic chance of double donging against this Florida penalty kill with as few penalties as Florida is taking. So I do like Buffalo 1 in a nutshell. I agree with you. I think they're more like 20 max, 150 max type plays. Like there are other, sub 5% ownership lines in that price range that we'll get to later in the slate that I think I'd rather take a shot on. So passing on Buffalo 1, Buffalo 2, I like Nicholas Aube-Kubel as a player. I want to get that straight. I have for a few years. He's a guy, if I was running a team, I would want him on my 4th line or something. I wouldn't want him on my 2nd line. In fact, I honestly think at this point, you could almost call the Zucker, Greenway, McLeod line the 2nd line, because the only reason Cousins is really getting a lot of minutes is because of the power play time. Otherwise, that Greenway, McLeod line is basically their 2nd even strength line at this point. They've been pretty high event to start this season. We talk about 120 shot attempts combined, for and against per 60 would be pretty high pace. They're at about 135, which is really high event. 17.6 high danger shots for, 18.6 against. Like, it's one of those everything is happening type of lines so far this season. Not that I'm necessarily advocating for Buffalo depth, but there are some really expensive lines on the slate here tonight. Zucker does get top power play time. Greenway does get secondary power play time. They are basically the second even strength line, so they're going to get 14 to 15 minutes. Like, if you're paying up for expensive Edmonton, expensive Colorado, expensive Tampa Bay, like, I think Buffalo's third line is one of those third lines I would consider. I would also consider the Florida third line, but as you said, Anton Lundell has been priced up. He's over $5K on DraftKings. Like, it's expensive. So if you need somebody super cheap, I think Buffalo 3 is playable, but it's only in spots where I'm paying up for those, 22 to 25K lines. On the Florida side, here's my issue with that Florida line. Like, you're right. They're coming in with pretty low ownership, 3.1%. I think it stays around there. It might even come down a little bit when we get a new ownership run. 20,900, 10.9% top 2 stack on the top stacks tool. Here's my issue. Bennett's off the power play now, right? And this is a team that basically runs their top 3 lines not evenly at even strength, but it's fairly close. Like, it's not a top line heavy team or even, a top 6 heavy team or something like that. Like, that Lundell line is going to get ice time. That's going to cut into Sam Bennett's ice time, and he's been under 17 minutes a game the last 3 games. Matthew Tkachuk is only averaging, it's like 17.09 per game. He's only played 5 games because he was sick for a week, but he's been playing about 17 minutes a game. He hasn't played a 19-minute game yet. That's what worries me about paying up for Florida is, like, with Barkov back, like, is Tkachuk and Verhaeghe, are they going to play 19 and a half, 20 minutes? Like, I doubt it. Now, you don't really need that against Buffalo. Their defensive letdowns are second to none, only to pretty much Ottawa. But that's kind of my issue, is that I'm a little worried about ice time. I think I would dip down to Reinhart, Barkov, and Rodriguez. Not worried about any matchups on the Buffalo side. You still get 2 out of 3 on the top power play unit. Maybe they'd watch Barkov's minutes. That would be kind of the concern there. But I think I would lean the Barkov line in this matchup, just because I have some minutes concerns for that Florida 2 line. But honestly, I think, both Florida's top 2 lines are very much in play here tonight. It's just my preference would be Barkov here. It's one of those things, like, I don't want to pay for a 21K line if Matt Tkachuk's going to play 17 minutes. Like, that's just kind of tough.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen won his 50th game as a Sabre over the weekend. He's now tied for 10th in goalie wins in franchise history. It's one of the funniest but saddest tweets I saw over the weekend. Like, how are you tied for 10th in that franchise with 50?
I mean, to be fair, like, they did have Ryan Miller and Dominic Hasek in net for like 15 years, right, between the two of them. So there's a pretty big, and they're an expansion team, like a 60s expansion team. So there is still. I'm trying to come up with a way to not make it look that bad, but man, that's bad.
That's pretty bad. Edmonton Oilers with a 3.9 total. Heading into Columbus, the Blue Jackets have a 2.7. Edmonton played last night. They beat the Wings in overtime. They didn't look great in that game. I mean, Draisaitl looked good. That was about it. Edmonton, assuming, they keep the lines the same. McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Podkolzin, Skinner, Henrique, Brown.
Yeah, that's another one we're gonna have to watch at warmups, because they did the Edmonton thing last night where Draisaitl went and played with McDavid for the third period. So something,
yeah.
And they have run that loaded top line for a few games this season, so they might go back to it. We're just gonna have to wait for warmups.
Yeah. And Columbus is going Monahan, Marchenko, Sillinger, Chinnikov, Fantilli, Pythia. I've actually watched more Columbus Blue Jacket hockey than I'd like to admit. And I like Pythia's game. He just does not shoot the puck. He's like Nick Schmaltz in Chicago. Just shoot the puck, man.
He has 3 shots. He has 3 shots in 7 games, and all 3 shots came in 1 game.
Yeah, it's like just shoot the puck, homie. Edmonton, here's the thing. Like, Columbus's penalty kill is poopers. So with the lines maybe up in the air and Hyman and Nugent Hopkins struggling to start this season, I think the thing that I'm comfortable doing is just going like McDavid, Draisaitl, Bouchard, McDavid, Draisaitl, Arvidsson, something like that. I would focus on the power play guys. Now, I think Edmonton won McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins. If that is the line, I'm completely fine with them at 20,800. I'd much rather play them than the Florida line we just talked about because they're only $600 more, and you know they're going to play their minutes. They have a 21.6% top two, 16.2% projected ownership, so you have positive leverage there. Now, if they do load that top line and it becomes, really pricey, I think if they go McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, I think you can leave off Hyman, go Arvidsson, or go Bouchard, something like that. So I would just concentrate on the power play guys. That's kind of how I deal with Edmonton anyway. In seasons past, it is kind of annoying that they sort of have split units. You know what I mean? I think once they start getting the engines going, like, it takes them a while. They'll go back to a more loaded unit, but for tonight, I'm concentrating on McDavid, Draisaitl, and adding pieces around that. On the Blue Jackets side, like, the Blue Jackets have the lowest home total on the slate, so like I don't want to really prioritize them. But this is back-to-back on the road for Edmonton. They didn't look great last night. Like, not that the Wings are a very good team, but it did take them to overtime to win. Like, I'm okay with Monahan, Marchenko, Sillinger, despite my feelings on Sillinger at 14.9. I'm also fine on Fantilli, Chinnikov. I just, like, in single entry, I'm not going to be playing Blue Jackets. I just feel like if they get into your crunches or whatever optimizer you use, I'm going to leave them unless I'm getting like an egregious amount. It's not something that I'm going to X out on the slate because I think Edmonton still has their issues that they have to figure out, and it's back-to-back on the road, but this is an Edmonton game for me.
Yeah. Obviously, Edmonton hasn't had like that great scoring start that we're all expecting, considering, how well they scored last year, et cetera, et cetera. They're last in the league by shooting percentage at 6.75%, and it's not particularly close. There's no other team below 7.3. That's one of those things that's going to turn around. Like, remember, like, this team struggled for the first 5 or 6 weeks last season, and then McDavid ended up with 100 assists. Hyman had a 50-goal season. Draisaitl had a 40-goal season. Like, we know how good these guys are going to be. And the thing with Edmonton is, like, we would be concerned if they weren't generating anything, right? But the Oilers are generating quite a bit so far this season by high danger shots per 60 minutes. They're third in the league. They're behind only Carolina and the New York Rangers, so they're the highest in the West. Like, they have the highest high danger shot rate in the Western Conference and the lowest shooting percentage in the league. Like, we know that's going to turn itself around. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. You mentioned the power play, the penalty kill for Columbus, and I'm really glad you did because that penalty kill has struggled. Sixth most shot attempts against per 60, third most shots against per 60, fourth most high danger shots against per 60. The only reason they're doing anything on the PK is because their goaltending has a 912 save percentage. It's one of those things that's like, if it was 30 points lower, it might lead the league by the end of the season. So like that's speaking of regression, this is a negatives on the negative side. We know Columbus's penalty kill is going to fall through eventually. We know Edmonton's going to heat up eventually. Do those two things happen here tonight? Only the hockey gods know. But I am kind of in here on Edmonton. Like, I did watch part of that game last night. No, they didn't look very good. They look like that sometimes. Like, remember, it's just a couple games before that where they're running Pittsburgh out of the rink, or a couple days before that. And then, last night they kind of struggled against Detroit, even though Detroit and Pittsburgh are similar teams. I really do like Edmonton here. I kind of like Edmonton too a little bit, assuming it's Draisaitl back on the second line. The reason for that is that Werenski-Provorov pairing for the Blue Jackets has been like quietly one of the best defense pairs in the NHL so far this season. 57% shot share, 59% scoring chance share, 4.7 goals per 60. The thing is like the team's getting run over when that pairing is off the ice. And when that pairing is off the ice, that's when you'll see the Edmonton second line. And so if it's like Draisaitl and Arvidsson or something like that, like I'm kind of fine with that too, man. Maybe you add McDavid to them just to give it some more power play stacking. I don't mind Edmonton 2 here. Again, we're going to have to see what the lines are in warm-up because they shuffled them during the game last night. We don't really know. For an even strength line, I like Edmonton 2, but I kind of agree with you in a nutshell. I'd rather just play the power play guys. This is just a really good power play matchup for them. So focusing on the Edmonton power play guys, they're near the top of the list for me today, certainly in consideration as some sort of a main stack. On the Columbus side, I don't have a ton of interest in Columbus. What I will say is that the top line is still generating pretty well, even with Sillinger there. Now, it's only been a few games, I think maybe 2 games. So, like, there isn't much of a sample there. But the fact that they generated so well in the 6 games or whatever that Chinnikov was out there and then just kind of kept the train rolling with Sillinger up there is kind of nice to see. So if you're looking for one of those mid-price stacks, like they're only coming in with a little bit of negative leverage. They're perfectly correlated on the power play. They're going to play 18 to 21 minutes. I don't mind Columbus 1 here. They're certainly one of the stacks that I would consider in the mid-price range. I'm not making them a priority or anything, but it's one of those situations like, it is only a 2.7 total. If the Blue Jackets get 3 goals, maybe Zach Werenski gets one, maybe the second line gets one or something like that. But I got to think if they put up some goals, it's going to be the top line figuring in because they've been playing so well through the month of October. So I do like Columbus 1 year. But they're not a priority for me. The priority would certainly be the Edmonton power play guys.
Yeah, and if you want to play Edmonton and you're worried about the new, like possibly mixing up your lines, just build with the most expensive guys and react to the news.
Yeah.
Nashville Predators with a 3 total heading into Tampa. The Lightning have a 3.4 total. While Cliffy was breaking down that game, I went and looked because 3 hours ago, every single Tampa beat writer was like, no Hagel, no Kucherov on the ice. They haven't updated since then. So I don't know.
I'm assuming no, I'm just assuming it's a maintenance day.
Yeah, they're probably just, shotgunning beers with Stamkos or something. Who knows? But yeah, Stamkos back in Tampa. If you like Narrative Street, do I got a line for you? No, but Nashville is loading up the top line. They're going Forsberg, Marchessault, O'Reilly, which is now fully correlated. Stamkos is on the second line with Gustav Nyquist and Tommy Novak. Then Evangelista, Sissons, Jankowski. Listen, I have no faith that after the first line that any of those lines will stay together. So for me, it would be Nashville 1, Forsberg, Marchessault, O'Reilly, fully correlated. The issue is if Hagel does play, they're going to be running into that Cirelli-Hagel matchup, which is been a absolute sludge in the mud for other lines. So as much as I really want to use Nashville 1 here, I would save it for MME. The more lineups that I'm making, the more likely I'm getting to Nashville 1 here. You want to one-off Stamkos for Narrative Street? Do it. Like, this is one of the bigger or biggest Narrative Streets so far this season. It's fine. Like, Nashville 1, I really like, but again, it's that Cirelli-Hagel pairing that is scaring me off a little bit. Now, Tampa's penalty kill, not the best in the world. So, like, maybe I get there if I'm building 3 lineups. I have 1 Nashville 1, but I'm more likely to reserve that for MME. On the Tampa side, like Tampa 1's price is just too high for me. Again, if I'm spending up that much, right? They're the most expensive line in the night. For $400 less, you can get the Colorado top line. You can get some sort of Edmonton power play stack for around the price of Tampa 1. You can play Vegas 1 for $2,600 less. You know what I mean? So, like, while I like Tampa 1 here, considering they're fully correlated, the penalty kill for Nashville isn't great. They're going to see the Stamkos line with Nyquist and Novak on it, which, like, isn't anything to ride home about. It's just the price, right? If they were 22.5, which is a fair price for that line, I'd be so much more interested. But half my salary on a line outside of Kucherov that doesn't deserve the price is just hard for me to click it in. I'm also okay with going just to Sorelli Hagel again, riding that wave until it crashes. You know what I mean? So, like, while I like this game, I think I'm reserving it for MME.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned those matchups because that Novak, Nyquist, and Stamkos line is not going to be good defensively. That's why, like, I was looking at the stochastic projections. Like, Nikita Kucherov is the most expensive winger on the slate, but he is also by far the top projection. Like, he's like 16% higher than the next closest winger by fantasy points. My numbers are fairly similar. Like, it seems like it's lining up as for a great matchup for Kucherov, but it's the same problem that you mentioned, and it's the same problem that we mentioned on the show on Saturday, is that the other guys just aren't shooting very much, right? Like, this Kucherov might get the shot bonus. I don't think that Gensel and Point will until they start showing us a little bit more offensively. Kucherov is obviously leading the team in shot rate. His shot rate is over 50% higher than Jake Gensel's. And then Jake Gensel is higher than Braden Point. Like Gensel and Point just are not shooting. And that's a concern because, especially on DK, because you really only have one guy that I think is a threat for the DK shot bonus here tonight. And if he doesn't get it, I don't think the other guys will. I really love Kucherov tonight. I think he makes all the sense in the world as a one-off. I think I kind of agree with you, though, as far as a full stack goes. I don't know if I can get there. Prices come down a bit, but they're still super expensive, $24,700. There's no ownership. I think I agree with you. It'd be more of an MME play. I almost said MMA. An MME play for me than full stack, but I really do like Kucherov as a one-off here. You want to drop down to Hagel and Sorelli. I think that's fine because they have been really good this season. They do get minutes. 19.2 high danger shots per 60, only 7.2 against. Like, they're running over the opposition. I don't think there's a Nashville line that could slow them down. So if you want to dip down to Tampa 2, I think that's fine. But I really do like Kucherov here. One thing I will say about Hagel, I haven't seen any official updates yet, but I was looking at the game log for their game on Saturday night, and he had a quick shift in the third period. And then at the end of the game, he basically didn't have a shift in the final 6 minutes or something like that. And, it was a 3-0 game. They didn't really need him to play, but something to keep an eye on. On the Nashville side, I kind of do like that Novak, Nyquist, Stamkos line. Like, I do like Stamkos as a one-off here tonight. Aside from Narrative Street, Tampa Bay's penalty kill has not been good this season. They're bottom 10 in the league by shots, high danger shots against. They're bottom 5 in the league by penalty kill save percentage. They're well above average by time shorthanded per game. So they're giving up a lot of power plays. They're allowing a lot of dangerous shots, and their goalies aren't stopping them. That's whether it's been Vasilevsky or not. And Stamkos, if there's one thing he's doing this season, he's still ripping the puck on the power play. So, like a Novak Stamkos two-man, Stamkos by himself, I think makes all the sense in the world. It's one of the reasons why I don't even mind Nashville 1 here tonight. It's because they are fully correlated, and I think it's a pretty good power play matchup for them. Nashville's power play has had a great shot rate so far this season, got to imagine that's going to start turning into even more goals than there have been already. I think it'd be more something for 20 maxing, but I really do like this power play spot for Nashville. One here tonight, but I'm going to be honest. Think like a 2-man of like Nyquist or like Novak, Stamkos, Nyquist, Stamkos, something like that. Stamkos one off on the Tampa side is like a Kucherov one off. Probably not full stacking that top line.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just go bet the Stamkos anytime goal just to get a piece of Stamkos revenge narrative instead of playing him in DFS tonight. Toronto Maple Leafs, 3 total. Heading into Winnipeg, the Jets have a 3.1. Leafs fans up in arms today over that Jake McCabe extension. I thought it was fine. I don't know why Leafs fans are going nuts over it. Like, the cap's going to go up, but, like, calm your tits, franchise, okay? Like, you're from the worst fan bases in the league. I love to see it. It gives me so much stuff. You could use a guy like Pierre Engvall, but, you signed Jake McCabe instead. Anyway, Leafs mixing up their lines. They're going Matthews, Marner's, Nyes. That's the same. Then they're going Nylander, Tavares, Pacioretty, and then Domi, McMahon, and someone. Robertson.
No, I think Holmberg's back in because they're scratching Robertson.
And they also mix up their power play units. The new top power play unit is Matthews, Marner, Nyes, Pacioretty, and Morgan Riley. The second unit is now with Tavares, Nylander, Domi, and OEL. I'm missing someone there, but it's not super important. The most important...
it's our boy Bobby.
Oh, yeah, Bobby. No relation to Vince. But the most important note now is Matthew Nyes, power play 1. That fully correlates Toronto 1. That's something that has been missing from that line for a season and a half now. The issue, I'm fine. I'm happy he's on the power play and he's going to be playing the Tavares role, the net front. Is if Oliver Ekman-Larsson was running that unit, I would be a bit more thrilled. But it is Morgan Riley, and it's fine. It's also a decent power play matchup here against the Jets. Now, I know Winnipeg doesn't know how to lose, and eventually they will, but they are getting a rested Hellebuck tonight, which is kind of annoying if you wanted to use the Leafs. I'm fine with Toronto 1 and MME because they're only coming in at 4.6% projected. I would imagine that comes up now that Nyes is power play 1, but they're under 20K. Fully correlated Matthews line under 20K is a play. Excuse me, for me. Nylander now is on the second power play unit. I don't have any interest in that second line outside of a Pacioretty one-off. So I do really like Toronto 1 just because the Jets penalty kill isn't great and they're fully correlated under 20K. And they have a 3 total. They're expecting goals in this game. On the flip side, I don't love Connor Scheifele-Velarde, but they're going to avoid the Matthews matchup. And that middle 6 for Toronto is just brutal, man, with these lines. I cannot imagine, Tavares, Nylander, Pacioretty at this stage in their careers is going to be good defensively. That third line certainly isn't going to be great defensively. That fourth line is going to be atrocious. So I'm okay with Connor Scheifele-Velarde, and they're fully correlated as well. And Toronto has an awful penalty kill. So I do really like both top lines in this game. You want to one-off Ehlers, I think that's fine as well. That second line, Nemestikov, Perfidi, Ehlers as a filler at 11-9, I think is fine, even if they only play 13, 14 minutes. That's priced like the Rangers' third line, and they kind of play like the Rangers' third line. So I'm kind of fine with Ehlers, Perfidi, Nemestikov. But I do really like both top lines.
Yeah, I will say I do like Winnipeg 1 here because, as you mentioned, they're not going to see much of the Matthews line. And, the Matthews line, it's why it's the one line that has been stuck together basically the entire season is because they have been crushing in their minutes. But, they control that top line controls like 64% of the high danger shots when they're on the ice, and it's closer to 50-50 when they're off the ice. Like, it's not the same team. That Winnipeg top line, they're kind of struggling to generate right now, but it is a line that does generate a lot more quality than they do quantity anyway. We know they're going to skate, Velarde on the low end at 18 minutes to 19 minutes, Connor Scheifele probably between 20 and 22, perfectly correlated on the power play. Like, the Leafs penalty kill has really not been that good yet again. 20th by high danger shots against per 60 on the PK. So this is a good power play spot for Winnipeg, and Toronto's taking penalties. Usually the Leafs aren't a heavily penalized team. Maybe it's just a small sample because they've only played 9 games so far. But Toronto's giving up the 4th most power plays per game of any team in the league this season. They give up like 4 to 5 power plays to Winnipeg. With the way that Toronto's penalty kill is going, I got to think that they pop at least one here. So Winnipeg 1 is one of those like expensive lines that I said I preferred earlier over Florida. 18,500 on DraftKings, 7.8 top 2 stack, 5% ownership. I do like Winnipeg 1 in this matchup, especially I don't think we have a confirmed starter for Toronto yet.
I think they said it's going to be or probably going to be Stellaris.
Oh, is it? Okay. That kind of sucks because I was actually hoping it was Wall because I wanted to play Winnipeg, but it doesn't like it. It does hurt, but it doesn't really change a whole lot. I still like Winnipeg 1 here. I don't have any interest in that Lowry line. I do think it's a bad matchup for them going out against Matthews. It is one of those lines that I think the Matthews line is probably going to get the better of them. Ehlers, Perfidi, Nemesnikov. I think they're in play. I just, it's the same concerns that we always have about them. It's just ice time, but they are generating a lot of shots. Sometimes they're even playing 15 minutes. Who knows? So I think they're fine, but it is Winnipeg 1 that I really, even though they're the most expensive, that I do like the best on that side by quite a bit. The Toronto side is interesting because, that Lowry line is going to get the matchups, and they're good, but they're not, facing that Dickinson-Anderson line from Chicago, which is weird to say, but they're not that defensively. You know what I mean?
They're like average, a little bit above average. Nothing.
Yeah, they're above average, but it's not even like Hagel Sorelli or anything like that we just talked about either. Like, it is a pretty tough matchup. Now, it is a line that can score on just about anybody, but Winnipeg's not taking any penalties this year. They're at 2 times shorthanded per game so far this season. It's the 3rd lowest penalty rate in the league. And Toronto just split their power plays up, which tells me that they're going to split the power play time. Like, this is a line that usually gets like 65, 70% of the power play time. It's probably going to be closer to like 55% now. Less power play time, bad power play matchup. Similar price to Winnipeg 1. I would rather just go play Winnipeg 1 instead. So, I think like a one-off Nylander, one-off Pacioretty is honestly one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. Just because he is getting that power play one time, and he's been shooting a lot this year. His shot rate's almost 20 attempts per 60, which isn't quite where he normally is, but it is quite high. So he's shooting a lot. He's gonna get power play time. He's on the second line. I like Pacioretty a lot as a one-off here today, but I don't mind Toronto 1. I just think in a single entry, I would prefer Winnipeg 1 here tonight. And other than that, it's just taking one-offs from the Leafs side.
Yeah, I think they give the Matthews unit more than 55%, but again, it's going to be a closer split than it was with the units were loaded. Anyway, Chicago Blackhawks going into Colorado. The Avalanche have a 3.8 total. Philip Kurashev up on the top line now with Teravainen and Bedard. Right? Yeah. And then the second line is Hall, Foligno, Bertuzzi, and then Donato, Dickinson, Mikheyev. Colorado, only line of real note is the top line of McKinnon, Rantanen, and Colton. Now, Colorado played last night back-to-back at home. Here's the thing, right? if you're at home against the Blackhawks, you're sending out your top guys, not against Dickinson and Soup. Joe Anderson's still out, but like Dickinson and Mikheyev have very good numbers together. You know who don't have great numbers together is Bedard and Kurashev when they were together last year. Bedard and Teravainen's numbers are pedestrian. You know has great numbers? Avs top line. They are cheaper than Tampa 1 here. Like Ross Colton's been moving up there, has been playing over 20 minutes a night. Mikko Rantanen and Nathan McKinnon are pushing sometime like on average 22 and a half to 23 minutes a night, just asinine stuff because they have to. They need some of these other guys back. They're up to a 62-minute sample now, which is probably for them like a game and a half at even strength. Really, it's probably like 5 games. They're 5.28 expected goals per 60. And they're still only scoring 2.9. Like their shooting percentage is low. So I do really, really like Colorado 1 here. They're fully correlated. Like you're kind of out of things to say. The only thing you really have to worry about is when you're playing the Blackhawks is if they're going to go out against Dickinson. And if you have a flow chart for this game, is McKinnon going out against Dickinson? No. Play them. I think if I'm spending up, it's for Colorado 1 here. They have a 39% top 2 stack on an 8-game slate. That's just ridiculous. And only 18% projected ownership, so they have positive leverage. Yeah, they played last night. Who cares? McKinnon and Rantanen are like 2 of the most conditioned players in the NHL to be playing those heavy minutes. Like eventually the wheels are gonna fall off, but McKinnon doesn't eat pasta, so he's good until he's 41. Colorado 2, like if you want to one-off middle stat or add him into a stack, I think that's fine. Like Logan O'Connor, very cheap one-off, sure, or something like that, but like it's really Colorado 1 or bust. On the Chicago side, no. Like I'll never say no to a Bedard one-off, but like I know the Avs goaltending has been terrible. So like I don't mind like a Bertuzzi one-off or a Hall one-off, or a Bedard one-off, but like that Bedard line going into McKinnon, Rantanen, Colton is going to be an absolute buzzsaw. So I'm probably fading Chicago tonight.
Yeah, it is notable that it was Justice Annunen that started yesterday. So that means it's going to be Georgiev back tonight. And Georgiev lost the net after about 10 days. So like I think that's one thing that's working in Chicago's favor here. Kind of low key. Like I think it's because Colorado, because the Colorado goaltending, Georgiev specifically has been so bad that they look poor defensively, but 10th fewest high danger shots against per 60 minutes through the Avalanche. And keep in mind that they're not getting these guys back tonight, but that's without Lehkonen, that's without Nichushkin, that's without Landeskog, that's without Taves for like 3 games or 4 games or something like that. Like this is a pretty good defensive team. I don't know why. I said it in our Discord yesterday. I don't know why they broke up the Teravainen, Foligno, Bedard line. It has been a good line. And not even just like Chicago adjusted good, like actually good. And Bedard and Foligno weren't bad together last year either. But man, if you look at the Kurashev and Bedard defensive numbers,
so bad.
Without Foligno, they are 27% worse than the league average by high danger shots against. I can't express how bad that is for a 450-minute sample. It is brutally bad. I really do like this matchup for Colorado 1 as well. They are really expensive. That's kind of the concern. There are 2 cheap 2-man stacks that we've already talked about that you can go to elsewhere. Like we talked about Buffalo. Columbus is certainly cheap enough. Nashville, you can do like a Nyquist, Novak 2-man. Like there are 2-man stacks that you can do to help fit them in. I might be more inclined to two-man like McKinnon, Colton, or something like that than I would be just a full stack the line. But this is a really good matchup for Colorado. What does worry me is that the one thing Chicago does have is a pretty good penalty kill. Could probably argue it's top 10 in the league. That is a bit of a concern. Chicago doesn't take a ton of penalties either. They're a little bit below the league average for power play opportunities given up per game. So if there's something you want to hang your hat on here, it's that it's not really a good power play matchup for Colorado, but it's a tremendous 5-on-5 and even strength matchup for them. So I really do like Avs 1 here. I will say, if I were to choose which line I would rather full stack, I would rather full stack Colorado than Tampa Bay here tonight. But I don't think you necessarily have to two-man stack or full stack. Like I said, you can two-man stack like McKinnon and Colton, McKinnon and Rantanen, just one off McKinnon, something like that. I think all those options are certainly in play. The Colorado second line hasn't been great, but considering this isn't really a good power play matchup, this is honestly one of those situations where I'm not against not playing the top guys from the Avs here. Like, I'm not against like a middle stat Logan O'Connor two-man or something like that. I'm really not, because this is a much better even strength matchup than it is a power play matchup for the Avalanche. So if you don't want to pay all the way up for Colorado, I think you can go down to like Logan O'Connor, Casey Middlestat, something like that. I don't know I would go much further down than that. But I do think this is one of those matchups where I don't mind playing the Colorado second line and not having, McKinnon or Rantanen or whatever in my lineup, just because I do think it is a much better even strength matchup than power play 1. But again, this power play is good enough to shred just about anybody. So something to keep in mind. On the Chicago side, I just no interest here. Like you said, one off Bertuzzi, I think is fine. One off Connor Bedard, I'm not going to say no. They aren't my top options for one-offs. I do think there are one-offs elsewhere on the slate we've already talked about that I'd rather play. I don't have a lot of interest in the Chicago forwards here. These lines are fucking terrible.
Yeah. And the one thing I'll say about Logan O'Connor, since Johnny Drouin went down and Logan O'Connor had to move into the top 6, he's been playing about 17 minutes a night. Just hasn't done anything yet with it, but historically,
he had a goal last night, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, last night he did okay, but historically he's pretty high shot volume. Yeah. So, you play for the back of the baseball card, not what they've done lately. Or maybe you don't. Who knows? San Jose Sharks with a 2.4 total heading into Utah. The Soakers have a 3.6 total. Not only do they have a 3.6 total, they have brand new lines that make me angry. They're going Keller, Cooley, Genther, Michelli, Hayton, Schmaltz, and Kerfoot, Krause, Bukestad. Coming into the day, I was really excited to play Michelli, Krause, and Bukestad for like 11,600 or whatever the hell it was. 10,400, excuse me. Now they're on different lines. That top line is interesting. Cooley, Genther, Keller, because Cooley and Genther so far this season don't have a great sample together. But most of the time it was with Doan. You throw Clayton Keller into that line and it's probably going to help. You get Keller and Genther on the top power play unit. The one thing that does concern me about these lines now is they're going to go full Seattle with their minutes. It really does worry me. I kind of like the makeup of Michelli, Hayton, Schmaltz. Michelli isn't I don't want to say elite. Maybe he is, but he's a great passer. I don't mind that line. It's just I went from 2 lines that I really, really liked to 3 lines where I'm just kind of oh, okay. You know what I mean? I like Krause and Bukestad being together, but Kerfoot does absolutely nothing for me. But the fact that they put Kerfoot with Krause and Bukestad makes me feel like they're going to be going out against top comp. So you're going to see split minutes, and that concerns me. So I would not be shocked to see anyone over 18 minutes and you see everyone 14 to 17. Sharks are just bad though. So can Keller, Cooley, Genther get there in 16, 17 minutes? Sure. Can Michelli, Hayton, Schmaltz get there in 16, 17 minutes? Sure. I don't mind Krause Bukestad as a cheap two-man if you're looking to power play stack like Edmonton or Colorado, something like that. I think the line that I would go to would be Michelli, Hayton, Schmaltz. I have Seattle vibes from this team now, and it concerns me. I think Sergachev might honestly be my favorite play on this team now. So I'm fine with these three lines. I'd probably go Hayton line 1, Cooley line 2, Bukestad line 3. But I have serious Seattle vibes, and it concerns me. On the Sharks side, I think that top line is fine. Eklund, Granlund, Toffoli, as long as they're together. I know Daniil Gushkin was up there for a bit last game. If they're together, they're fully correlated. Utah's penalty kill stinks. So I do like the Sharks one as long as they're together. But this game was a lot more fun before Utah decided to soak their lines.
Yeah, it kind of sucks because this is a really, really good power play spot for Utah. And like 2 days ago, they had 2 perfectly correlated forward lines, and now they have 0 perfectly correlated forward lines for what is probably the best power play spot in the NHL. That's like not really happy about it. I think Krause and Bukestad as a two-man makes a lot of sense. They don't really have a sample with Kerfoot, but Krause and Bukestad have generally played well together in their time in Arizona over the previous few years. Bukestad played his first game on the weekend. This is only game 2. Like, I was surprised they only gave Michelli that one game on that line because that line has generally been pretty good. So I think Krause and Bukestad certainly makes sense as a two-man stack. Same even strength line. Same power play line. You can put them in for $7K. It's one of those, two mans that you can put in with your Colorado or your Edmonton or something like that. Here's my issue with that Michelli, Schmaltz, Hayton line is that other than the first 8 or 9 games of this season, neither Hayton nor Schmaltz nor Michelli really have much of a sample as shooters, right? Like, one of the things that I know you best for in the NHL is complaining about Nick Schmaltz not shooting the effing puck. Barrett Hayton, the first 9 games of the season is the most Barrett Hayton shot at any point in his career, and Michelli's just not a shooter at all. It's almost like a line with 1 grinder and 2 playmakers, which can get there, but it's not like they're cheap. Like, if this was like a 12-1 or an 11-5 line, I think I'd probably go with it. But 14,400 really isn't that cheap for a line that really doesn't have any shooters on it. I'm going to be honest. I think I'd rather just go play Columbus. Like, Columbus one is virtually the same price. I think I'd rather just go play. It feels weird to say, but I think I'd rather go play Monahan, Marchenko, Sillinger than the Michelli line. Like, if I full stack anything from Arizona, I think I'm going to that Keller, Cooley, Genther line. One thing I talked about last season was how much better Logan Cooley's transition numbers were after Dylan Genther got called up in January of last season. Like, things like zone entries with possession, creating chances off those zone entries, stuff like that got way, way better with Dylan Genther. Things didn't really look good at the start of the season. When you're playing with Josh Doan and Jack McBain or whatever it was, I can't imagine why that didn't go well. Playing with Clayton Keller is just, adding a superstar to their line. I really like that Keller, Genther, Cooley line. They're my favorite line in this game by a lot. Keller does shoot. Genther certainly does shoot. We have shooters on that line. We have playmakers on that line. We have good transition players on that line. 2 out of the 3 on the top power play unit, which is the most that you're going to get. Well, I suppose you can use Schmaltz and Hayton, but like, stacking that line and then leaving off Keller and Genther in a great power play spot is another reason why I'm kind of against it. So I think it's Keller, Genther, Cooley for me, like, by a lot. I really like that line. They're one of my favorite lines on the slate. Now, I think they're going to come in with a fair bit of ownership. The top stacks tool has them at 13% against a 10.9% top 2 stack. I wouldn't be surprised if that even comes up to like 15 or higher. I'm perfectly fine with it. It's a great matchup against a really, really bad San Jose team. On the Sharks side, if Eklund's on the top line, I'm fine stacking the top line. If Eklund's not on the top line, I really don't have any interest in the Sharks. I mean, a one-off to Foley, one-off Granlund, like those things are fine because it is a good power play matchup for San Jose, and they do have a good power play. But unless the top line is perfectly correlated, I really don't have a lot of interest in it.
Yeah. And yeah, we did get a new rung here about 15 minutes ago. That Florida Bennett Kachuk line went down to 2%. That to Barkov line is 3.3%. So yeah, most of the other lines are about in play here. Keller, Genther, cool. Like, do you have minutes concerns just because they're going to be running 3 lines though?
Yeah, but at the same time, like it's not like this is a $20,900 line. Like they're under 18K. You know what I mean? Like they're basically priced like they're a Dallas line, which is fine. Like, you know, are they going to get a ton of ice time? Probably not. They won't get more than Winnipeg. They won't get more than, you know, maybe even Calgary. But I'm not super concerned about it for under 18K in this particular matchup. If it was a tougher matchup, I would be concerned, but not against the Sharks.
Fair. Carolina Hurricanes with a 3 total heading into Vancouver. The Canucks have a 2.9. Feels like the Hurricanes have been on the West Coast all season. Like this has to be one of their last stops on the West Coast because they're in Seattle, go up to Vancouver. Maybe they're flying home after this. I haven't looked at their schedule, but
yeah,
this is
the last game of a 6-game road trip.
Yeah. We've reached the point of the season where conjecturing about an injury isn't really the thing to do. But Pettersson has to be playing hurt, man. Like, they've even talked about his knee being a little bit of a mess. So, like, it just does not look like the same player. I don't want to conjecture, but, like, the team has come out and said he's had knee issues. So, like, you kind of put 2 and 2 together there. It's very rare you get a body part on any of these injuries. So, like, if a team is willing to confirm it, probably an issue. So I'll let you talk about it a little bit more. You looked up his stuff, his stats, based like you did with Marner last year with his speed and all that kind of stuff. And I'll let you touch on that. But Vancouver going Besser, Miller, DeBrusk, Pettersson, Garland, Hoglander. Then, you know, the bottom 6. Carolina going Aho, Svechnikov, Ralstovic, Netchis, Kotkaniemi, Robertson, Jarvis, Stahl, Martinook. Jarvis, Stahl, Martinook have been together for 2.5, 3 games now. I think they've given up 2 high danger chances in that sample. Like, that's going to be a great line. I do worry that Besser, Miller, DeBrusk are going to get galaxy brained into going out against that line a fair bit. Maybe they see Aho, Svechnikov, Roslovic some, but I think they're going to see them at 6 some as well. I'm kind of out on Vancouver. Like, by kinda, I mean I'm out on Vancouver here tonight. It's a tough matchup. For those prices, I'd rather go play Utah, despite me just going on a rant about how they give off Seattle vibes. But like 13-1 for Pettersson, Garland, Hoglander, 16-3 for Besser, Miller, DeBrusk. They're not fully correlated, either of those lines. Carolina has an excellent penalty kill. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league. So I'm out on Vancouver. On the Carolina side, as a filler, I honestly don't mind Stahl, Jarvis, Martinook. But at the same time, like, if they're going to put Besser, Miller, DeBrusk out against them, that also means they're going to see Quinn Hughes and Hronik a fair bit, which does concern me. But at 10,500, I'm fine with them as a filler. It would be the Carolina top line for me. Aho, Svechnikov, Roslovic, one-off Netchis is fine. So this game is pretty much MME for me, except for the Carolina top line. Don't mind Carolina 3 as a filler.
Yeah, I'll just touch on Pedersen quickly. Like the NHL has that NHL Edge stat app, whatever you want to call it, where you can gauge player speed going back 4 years. We used it last year for Marner. Marner ended up missing a bunch of games later in the season, and I think it was a 4-year low in points per minute. So it seemed like we were kind of right there. Anyways, for Elias Pettersson, one thing they judge is speed bursts, and he was in the 74th percentile of players last season. This season, he's in the 48th percentile. So basically, from a low end first liner to a third liner. Top skating speed, he was in the 61st percentile last season. This season, he's in like the 40th percentile. Like all of his skating metrics are down quite a bit. And I wanted to make sure it wasn't just because he's only played 7 games, I think. I just wanted to make sure like it wasn't really a small sample. Looked at prior years, like 2022, 23, 21, 22. They were all better than this year. He said towards the end of the season last year, he had knee tendonitis. He said he had to change his training regimen in the off season because his knee was bothering him. But then he said his knee was fine, which felt like just a lie to me, which, I wouldn't admit I was injured either if I was in the NHL. But if you've watched him play, if you look at his skating numbers, if you look at his shot numbers, everything is down. I do have concerns. It's not that he's going to, be absolutely pitiful, but it's the difference between a 35 goal, 95 point player and a 25 goal, 65 to 70 point player. And that makes a pretty big difference. I don't think this is a good matchup for him. I think I would just go Miller, DeBrusk, and Besser. That line has been playing well. Doesn't matter who the third winger is going to be, has been, even with DeBrusk. Without DeBrusk, hasn't really mattered. With DeBrusk, it's only been a few games, but they have over double the high danger attempts of the opponent. You get 2 out of 3 on the top power play unit. But I'm not going to lie, Vancouver's just not a big priority for me here tonight. On the Carolina side, Carolina 1 is a little bit tough to get in. 1, because Lankinen's in net. He's played well. 2, Vancouver's penalty kill is arguably the best in the NHL. And Carolina's been, the power play's actually been pretty good this season. So if it's not a really good power play matchup, they really have to get there at 5-on-5. 5-on-5, you're going to be going up against that Quinn Hughes pairing and the JT Miller line. It's just, there's a lot lining up against Carolina 1. I think this is a situation where I would dip down to Carolina 2. Nate just caught Kotkaniemi, Eric Robinson. I think they get the better matchup. You get Marty Necas on the top power play unit. Him and Kotkaniemi have actually been fine this year. 13.8 high danger shots per 60. League average is like 11.8. They're actually scoring 3 goals per 60 minutes going back to last season with Necas and Kotkaniemi on the ice without any of the top wingers. So I think like a 2-man of Necas, Kotkaniemi or something like that, if you really need to save a lot of money because you're expensive stacking elsewhere than Kotkaniemi Robinson. But I don't mind that Carolina second line here. It's kind of the only thing that's really intriguing me to use as a filler stack.
Yeah, this was one of the games where I was just like, this game sucks. Like, it's an actual good hockey game. It's just,
right. Like, I imagine it'll be a pretty good game. This, like, it just screams 3-1 to me. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Calgary Flames with a 2.8 total. Heading into Vegas, the Golden Knights have a 3.6. Eichelstone, Barbashev, Hurdle, Dorofeyev, Howden, Carlson, Tanner Pearson, Alex Holtz. Calgary going Kadri, Sharangovich, Kuzmenko, Coleman, Backlund, Zari, Huberdeau, Pospisil, Mantha. This game's kind of interesting. I'm not sure the matchups truly matter. It's like Backlund, Coleman with Zari have been okay defensively. Kadri and Kuzmenko, okay defensively. Pospisil, Mantha, Huberdeau, actually pretty decent defensively. They just don't play a bunch. Like, I'm not sure it matters who Vegas goes out against. What does worry me a little bit is the Vegas top line's numbers at 5-on-5. They're not great. They're underwater for Corsi. They have a 46% Corsi 4 percentage on the season. 2.79 expected goals per 60. That's not very good for a top line. They're just shooting out of their minds, and they're getting almost 6.75 goals per 60 just because they're shooting out of their minds. Now, for that reason, like, I guess they're playable, but they're 22,100. At that point, I'm going to the Avs in my single entry. You know what I mean? Like, I'll figure out the other $2,000 than trying to jam Ivan Barbashev into my lineup. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fine with them. I just worry that the shooting percentage is going to crash down. And at that price, there's other lines I'd just rather play. For Vegas, it's Hurdle, Dorofeyev, Howden for me. If you want to leave off Howden, Rangers legend, I think that's fine. You get Hurdle and Dorofeyev on the top power play unit. They're playing some serious pond hockey. They are very high event. So I'm fine with them at their price. I kind of was interested in like a Pearson, Carlson, Holtz, some sort of them as a filler, but like Carlson's 5,500. I was hoping we would get a little bit of a discount on him for being out pretty much all season, but no. So at that point, I'd rather just go play like Bukestad and Krause. So it would be Vegas 2 for me. On the Calgary side, like I see Coleman back on Zari getting a wild amount of ownership at 11,600. Like, that's fine. But like, you get fully correlated Kadri, Sharangovich, Kuzmenko at 16K with a barely any negative leverage. I think that's where I'd go. Like, I don't mind them as a mid-range build, but again, like, if you're playing Colorado, you're playing Tampa, you're playing Vegas 1, you're playing Florida, Calgary's kind of priced in no man's land. I think, if you're going to make a mid-range build with like two lines in between, 14 and 17K or like something like that, I would consider Kadri, Sharangovich, Kuzmenko. But, I'm fine with Coleman back on Zari. I just 12.3%. I'd rather just go play Krause and Bukestad again. So like, I'm fine with Calgary top line here of Kadri, Sharangovich, Kuzmenko. For me, it's Vegas 2.
Yeah, Vegas 2 is the line I like most on that side. Like at this point, I feel like we say it every show. The Vegas top line can't keep getting away with this. We're shooting 22.5% at 5-on-5. Ivan Barbashev is shooting like 37%. Like Barbashev is generally a high percentage shooter anyway, but like 17, 18%, not like 36, 38% or whatever. Whether that stops tonight, I guess we're going to find out. But I agree with you. Like if I'm going to spend over 22K on a line here, I'm just going to go play Colorado. Calgary's penalty kill has actually been pretty good. The one thing that's let them down is goaltending. Now, goaltending and penalty killing is kind of inextricably linked. One kind of helps out the other. So who you want to blame it on, go ahead. But Dan Vladar has played. Dan Vladar has played 4 games for Calgary and has a 733 penalty kill save percentage. And he's arguably the worst goalie in hockey. So, again, I haven't seen an update. I don't know if they've had morning skate yet because, it's still reasonably early on the West Coast. As long as Dustin Wolf is starting, I really don't have a lot of interest in that Vegas top line just because Vladar is really bad. He's been really bad on the penalty kill. Other than him, like the penalty killers themselves, lowest high danger shots against per minute. Don't tell me.
That's
oh my god. Well, it's a good power play spot. I mean, I don't know what to say. I think I would still just go with Vegas 2. They are really cheap. Hurdle, Dorofeyev, Howden. Without Alex Holtz on that line, they're above average by high danger chances generated per 60. They're actually scoring 2 out of the 3 on the top power play unit. They're getting ice time, 17, 18 minutes, especially for Dorofeyev, Hurdle, somewhere in that price range. They're definitely going to come in over owned, 1.6% top 2 stack, 5.9% ownership. But I think they're perfectly fine as a filler type stack here tonight if you're not using Colorado, Edmonton, Tampa Bay, those types of things. Obviously, Vegas one is in play. Like, for me, I'm like, I'm just hoping that shooting percentage crashes. On the Calgary side, it's not a bad power play matchup for the Flames when they can get a power play. But Vegas doesn't take a ton of penalties. That's the issue. They're one of the least penalized teams in the league. Not doing a very good job of killing off the penalties they are taking, but they're just not taking a lot of penalties. Calgary, Kadri, Kuzmenko, Sharon Govich line, perfectly correlated. Backlund, Coleman, Zari, correlated as well. If you want to play one of those, like, go ahead. They're coming in, especially that Coleman, Backlund, Zari line coming in with a fair amount of ownership. 12.3% gets a 2% top two stack. I'd rather just pay the extra $1,500 or whatever and go play Vegas instead. That's where I'd sit. If you need a super cheap stack because you are playing Colorado, Edmonton, Tampa, Huberdeau, Pospisil, Mantha has been a good line this year. Not just because they have been scoring, but because they have been generating some good high danger numbers. So I think Calgary 3, that Pospisil, Huberdeau, Mantha line, some 2-man off of that. Don't mind using somebody there if I'm playing an expensive stack elsewhere. But yeah, it's the Vegas side I like a lot better here.
Yep. And before we move on to defensemen and goalies, if you see me looking down on my phone and spewing out numbers, and he's in the chat, actually, Quick Party 2, he's the guy who does line matching. It's our boy. If you're interested in line matching, you can go to his Patreon, patreon.com/line matching. He's also on Twitter @line matching if you want to shoot him a message. All those numbers are coming from his line matching sheets. He does the hard work, so I can sound smart. His back hurts as well from carrying my candy ass. Also, again, just wanted to say thank you guys for the affiliate signups. There is 370 of you in chat in between YouTube and Twitter. It definitely helps that we're now simulcast on X, Twitter. I'm never going to call it X. It sounds stupid. Twitter. If you want to go premium, again, you can click that link in the chat. Use promo code Stochastic15. It'll get you 15% off your first week or month. I did see some questions about Sims for NHL. There's not going to be Sims this year in NHL. They have told us it is a very difficult thing to do. They're going to try to get it ready for next season if possible. But again, that's all we know. If we know more, we'll let you know. Let's go move on to defensemen at the top of the board. Cale Makar, Roman Josi, Zach Werenski, Victor Hedman, Quinn Hughes, Shea Theodore. Almost all those guys are viable here tonight. Obviously, Makar at the top of the list for me. And I'll throw Bouchard into that mix because he's definitely in play here tonight. Bouchard, Theodore, Werenski, Josi, Makar, all very playable. It's just if you're spending up, it's going to be tough to fit them. Cliffy has the mid-range and cheap guys that we'll probably all be playing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do. I'll just say quickly at the top, it's Bouchard, Makar. Yeah. 1 and 2 for me. Mid-price range, like Darnell Nurse is still projecting well. If you actually watched him play a hockey game, you'd wonder why we were projecting him for any fantasy points at all. It's been tough to watch this year. Neil Pionk, I think certainly play. Like the thing is like I think there are some decent guys in that 4 to 5K range, but the 5 to 6K range are just there's 3 guys that really do stand out, like Rasmus Dahlin. He's still cheap. He had 3 assists the other day. There's a lot of positive regression signs around him. I do like Dahlin. Josh Morrissey against a really bad, well, not a really bad, but a bad Toronto penalty kill. I like just fine. Mikhail Sergachev, obviously we mentioned Utah is in the best probably in the best power play spot on the slate here tonight. So Sergachev makes a lot of sense. Cheaper guys, Nico Mikkola has been getting good ice time for Florida. Like Florida's basically just using their third pair for like 10 minutes a game. And then their top 4 is playing like anywhere to like 22 to 20 or 20 to 23 minutes, including Mikkola. Alex Carrier might have to block a lot of shots tonight. Maverick Lamoureux, he has been getting some good ice time for Utah. Everybody's always in play against the San Jose Sharks, but if you're going to give me a defenseman at 2,600 that might play 20 to 21 minutes here tonight, don't mind him. The fresh signee, Jake McCabe, he always projects well as long as he's in that low 3K range. Kevin Ball, I'll mention Kevin Ball because he might have to block a lot of shots against Vegas here tonight. He's definitely a block shot threat on DK. Mike Kesselring running the second power play unit for Utah. He's certainly in play. Alex Vlasic got moved off the Chicago power play, but it is Colorado. He might have to throw his body in front of a lot of shots here tonight as well. And then two defensemen to mention. One is Jack Thompson. He's running the top power play for San Jose. Still pretty cheap. Pretty good power play matchup too. And San Jose is a legitimately decent power play. Legitimately good. Like they're not just, like we like to say San Jose adjusted good. They're actually good. And this isn't confirmed, but I think it's going to be Uvis Balinskis running the top power play unit for Florida here tonight because they're scratching Adam Bokvist. And when Bokvist missed a game earlier in the season when he took that puck to the face, it was Balinskis that ran the top power play unit. So it might not be Aaron Ekblad. It might be Balinskis, and Balinskis is stone min at 2,500 here tonight.
Balinskis. Every time I see his name, I see ball sinker. So that's what I'm going to call him, ball sinker. But yeah, lots of good cheap guys here tonight. Let's talk about goalies, even though no one really wants to. Do I really want to? Not really. Hellebuck at home under 8K again. I'm going to have to start playing the Marty Jones music for DraftKings pricing at this point. If they keep doing that, the Hellebuck. Honestly, don't mind both goalies in that game if it's Stellaris. Like Stellaris there. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, if you're going down, he is 10th in the organization in wins at 7,300. He's going to see some volume. Honestly, like Mackenzie Blackwood is all right at 7K. He just doesn't need to go negative, and he does have a chance to see the saves bonus. But really, it's like Connor Hellebuck. Like that price is just silly.
Yeah, Hellebuck, number one for me. Number two right behind him is Aiden Hill. I know Aiden Hill hasn't been good this year. I was actually hoping it would be Samsonov starting here tonight, but it's not. It's just a good matchup. Again, I was really hoping Samsonov would be starting, but I think Hill's in play if you need an expensive goalie. If you want to pay down, Kevin Lankinen is certainly in play at home against Carolina. I'll play literally any goalie in the NHL at 7,500 against the Carolina Hurricanes when they're at home. So
Jonas Johansson.
I might. I might.
Well, Blackwood. So
yeah. And if you need another cheap goalie, Edmonton's still not scoring a ton of goals. We know they're going to start scoring a lot eventually. If it's not tonight, Merzlikins could see a lot of shots, but not a lot of goals. I'm not targeting Merzlikins. Don't get me wrong. I'd rather just go pay an extra couple $100 and go play Lankinen, but I think Merzlikins can be used.
I was hoping it was going to be Tarasov.
Me too. Two of the cheap two of the goalies that I had circled for tonight were Tarasov and Samsonov. And I also had Dustin Wolf, and then all three coaches were like, no.
Oh, I was going to play Wolf tonight without a doubt if he was starting. And then it's just like, let's go play Danny against, Vegas. But what can you do? Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
I am going to the last undefeated team in the NHL, the 8-0 Winnipeg Jets, and I'm going with Gabriel Flaherty.
Gabe, he needs that game, man. He's been pretty bad. Is Quick Party still in chat? Because this is for you. I'm going Pavel Dorofeyev.
Nice. I like it.
He's a Dorofeyev slappy. Everyone has their guys. Dorofeyev is his.
Him and I are I'll give him the presidency of the Dorofeyev fan club, but I'm certainly vice president. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I mean, he has Riley Barber and a few other.
Marty Ferk.
Yeah, there he is. Best player alive. Yeah, Marty Ferk. Seriously, someone should give Marty Ferk a shot. I'm a Marty Ferk guy too. But anyway, we'll be back every day this week. You're going to see our beautiful faces all week. I'm sure you're not sad about it. I wouldn't be sad if I was looking at me all week. Anyway, I got to go. We're going to go. Good luck, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, everyone.